Hello and welcome to Chapter 15, Advertising and Public Relations. Here are the learning objectives for the chapter, and we'll be talking about all of these subjects as we scroll through the chapter. Hope you all are doing well and managing through these crazy times, but I'm sure that soon things will start to go back to normal. And we're almost finishing up with the semester, so I hope all of you are keeping up with everything. And if you have any questions or have any concerns, please make sure you contact me or through email, course messaging. I'm always available. So, what is advertising? I guess the main thing to know or to remember about advertising is the paid form. So you're actually paying for it, and it's non-personal. In other words, it's not people selling. It's more of some type of a billboard, a newspaper ad, social media. It's a paid form of presentation and promotion. Okay, so advertising is paid form of non-personal presentation and promotion. Worldwide, we see almost $500 billion spent on advertising. So it's a very lucrative business. It's a business with a lot of job opportunities, and it's a very significant part of the world economy. If you took a look at the four primary decisions that a marketing manager or a marketer makes, it's all sort of rolled up into this graphic. Marketing managers will set the advertising objectives. In other words, what are we trying to achieve with what we're doing with this advertisement? They'll set the advertising budget. There's different ways of doing that, and often it's a combination of several. They will also develop the advertising strategy, from the message strategy to deciding on the major media types, etc. And then they will actually evaluate the advertising, which is very critical because companies can waste a lot of money on ineffective advertising. I may have mentioned this before, but if I was advertising to your age group, 18 to 24, it would be a colossal waste of money to advertise through the newspaper, since you don't read the newspaper. But my advertising dollars would be more effective in that situation if I spent that money on social media advertising, because social media is something that you look at on a daily basis. So those are the four major decisions that are made in advertising by marketers, and the chapter sort of discusses that as we go through. So an advertising objectives is basically, what are we trying to communicate, and what are we trying to accomplish with that communication to that specific target audience during the specific time that we run the ad? So are we trying to gain brand recognition? Are we trying to achieve a certain level of sales? If you see here in the graphic, where basically Santa Claus is drinking a Pepsi. So that grabs the attention of the viewer because of Santa Claus. But if you notice, the verbiage is summertime is Pepsi time. So even though Christmas doesn't happen in the summer, obviously Pepsi's objective here was to grab the attention of the viewer during the summer months and try to increase sales of Pepsi during that time. An advertising objective is important because if we don't have a clear objective in mind, we will tend to waste our money on advertising that really doesn't get anything done at all. So that's why you will always see, especially in newspaper ads, coupons. The objective there is to get you to come to the store, use the coupon, and buy the product. And it has a clear objective in mind. When we're creating advertising and we have our objectives, there are four types or four forms of advertising. Informative advertising, where we're just really trying to get brand recognition, let people know that we're out there. When I was opening up my medical equipment company, one of the first things that I did was just advertise that I bought advertising that said, we're open. Here's our phone number. Here's the products we have. Here's our website. And it was all a matter of, the objective was just to get people to know that the store existed. Persuasive advertising is really critical when there's competition involved. In other words, if I have fierce competition, my advertising, I want it to be persuasive so that people choose my brand or my company over the others. So being persuasive, you're trying to get people to make a decision and to select your product. Comparative advertising, obviously, is when we're comparing two brands. And if you take a look at the graphics to the right, Pepsi and Coke, and that's an actual ad that ran at some point, an actual Pepsi ad that compared the two. Notice that the Coke doesn't have the name on it. It's just the recognizable can. And the straw doesn't want to go into the Coke, which is pretty cool. But I'm a Coke drinker, so this ad didn't have any effect on me. But that's Pepsi trying to get customers to select their brand, but it's comparing the two. And then there's reminder advertising. And this is when products are in the maturity stage of the life cycle. And they just want to remind customers that the product is out there, and you still need the product. So the graphic on top, and I know all of you have seen these commercials, got milk. That's just a reminder advertising piece that says, hey, milk is good for you. And usually there's a celebrity involved that has a milk around their lips. But those are the four types of primary four types of advertising: informative, persuasive, comparative, and reminder advertising. Here, this graphic shows some comparisons between the informative, persuasive, and reminder advertising, giving you basically some objectives of what types of objectives each would have. So what are some factors to consider when we're setting the advertising budget? How much money are we going to spend on advertising? And there are several things that we have to think about. One is, where is the product in its product life cycle? If you remember me just a slide ago talking about reminder advertising. Reminder advertising usually happens when the product is in the late maturity stage of its life cycle, or even in the decline stage. Milk, as we know, is not going away. There won't be a time when it ceased to exist, but it's obviously in its maturity stage of its life cycle. So a reminder advertising there is really an appropriate strategy to put in place. But how much money do we want to spend? So what stage is it in the product life cycle? What is our market share? And what do we think we want our market share, or could our market share be? And what does the competition look like? If you think about milk, milk has a lot of competition. There's a lot of beverages out there that people drink besides milk. And if you think of milk as a breakfast time beverage, even then it has a lot of competitive with other juices and even other types of milk that are on the market. So when you're considering these factors, that will help you determine how to set the budget. Obviously, advertising is really fierce in the introduction and growth phase when there's a lot of competition coming on board, but we don't spend a lot of money on products that are in the maturity and decline stages. So knowing that will help us when we're selecting how much money or determining how much money to spend. Advertising strategy. So this is how are we going to accomplish our objectives? What are we going to put in place? So we're creating the message itself, and we're selecting a media. And if you think of all the different types of media that are out there for advertising, it blows your mind. Of course, you've got the big ones, which social media, television, newspaper, billboards, radio. Those are we all know of those. But what about, have you ever gotten a promotional pen or a promotional pencil where someone handed you maybe a flyer or a brochure? Have you ever went to a restaurant where the placemats had businesses advertised on them? Trust me, when I opened my business in 2012, I had no idea how many media vehicles there are, because every day 3 or 4 salespeople would come through the door trying to sell me advertising, from radio, TV, restaurant placemats, promotional items like pencils and notepads. I mean, it is amazing how many different types of media there are. And so selecting that type of media is part of the strategy. Because what is our objective? If our objective is to get the word out to a certain target audience, what is the appropriate media to use to get to that target audience? And it can be, like I said, there are so many different types of media. It just blows your mind. So it can be a difficult decision on selecting that advertising media. But creating the message and then selecting how we're going to get that message out to the target audience is part of the strategy. Obviously, as we're creating the advertising strategy, we're creating a message. A lot of times today we have to realize that as a consumer, there is so much, you are exposed to so many advertisements, it's insane. Just driving down the road, you subliminally may be open to hundreds of different types of advertising, billboards, signs, commercials on the radio. It's amazing how many times and how much clutter there is out there. So one of the things that is important for a marketer is to create a message that can get through the clutter so that it gets to the target audience that it's intended to or intended for. And it's very difficult today. The graphic on the right basically shows a remote control. And that's one of the problems that a lot of television advertisers have had problems with, is people will fast forward or change channels. And since that's the new technology, marketers have to find creative ways to get through the clutter that's out there. So as we're creating this message and this brand content, there's a couple things and by the way, you may see some links. You may want to take a look at those links. I would have done it in class, but those links show some examples of, and for instance, this one here shows an example of brand placements. But Madison and Vine is traditionally, if you've never heard that term before, Madison Avenue in New York City was or is where most of the large advertising companies, major advertising firms are located, on Madison Avenue in New York. Hollywood and Vine, you probably have heard that before. That's an intersection in Hollywood where a lot of the actors and entertainment, notable entertainers would hang out at Hollywood and Vine. So Madison and Vine is just basically a term that says advertising and entertainment are sort of interrelated, and they've merged to create commercials and different types of advertising over the years. A lot of times you'll see the television ads that are made with some type of entertainer or notable celebrity. So that's what Madison and Vine means. Native advertising is other brand-produced online content. And so on social media, you'll witness that. There's a lot of times on social media you'll just see creations that have been made by the companies that are there to grab your attention and to give you a message, but they don't have it's not per se entertaining, or there's not an entertainer or a celebrity involved in it. That's native advertising. The message and the content strategy, again, is just to make sure that we're communicating to the consumer the benefits of the product. Remember, features and benefits. Features tell, benefits sell. And we also want to make sure that we are, if you remember about integrated marketing communications, we want to make it consistent and compelling to the consumer. And so we want to make sure that we're following what we've determined to be our position in the market and what type of customer value we want to bring to the consumer. Here we're just, and the creative concept is just basically making sure that our advertising is meaningful, believable, and distinctive. In other words, it means something when we see it, it's believable, and it grabs the attention. If you remember the ADA model, that's basically what this slide is saying. Nothing too important here. And then message as execution is basically, how are we delivering the message? What style? What are we trying to go after? The emotional tone, the words, the format of executing the entire message throughout the commercial or the advertisement. When I think of this, I think of the Matthew McConaughey Lincoln Continental advertisements or commercials, where he talks in a low tone and he wants to bring the message. You have to listen carefully to what he's saying. And well, I don't really care for Matthew McConaughey, or whatever the hell his name is, but the tone and the words are all part of the message execution. There is one commercial that I like that he's in for Lincoln, and it's the latest one that I've seen, where he's going fishing and he's whistling the Andy Griffith Show tune. When he does that, it grabs my attention because I'm a fan of that era. I'm a fan of that show. Think about who's buying Lincoln Continentals. It's people my age or older that are familiar with that. And so usually where he appeals, he has this sex appeal that he's using in the commercial or in the execution of the message. In the latest commercial where he whistles the tune of the Andy Griffith Show, he's actually going after a different audience in that commercial. So there's lots of styles that you can think of. I'm not going to go over all these, but I am going to give you an example of a couple. But there's slice of life, where the commercial basically shows life as we know it. There's lifestyle, fantasy, mood or image, musical, personality symbol, technical expertise, scientific evidence, or testimonial or endorsements. All of these are execution styles that advertising messages can take on. But let's look at a couple. So this is a slice of life advertising. And basically it shows young people. If you take a look at this, one's for McDonald's where he's buttering his cell phone because he's so tired. But that's a slice of life. That ad is going after a target audience of your age group, 18 to 24, and you can relate to that. Getting up in the morning, being tired, not ready to go to class or not ready to go to work, and you I don't know if you've ever accidentally buttered your iPhone or your phone, but anyway. And then the next one is an ad for Spotify, because music doesn't judge, and it has sort of like some weird dancing going on there. But another group your age, target audience that's specifically in your age group, and it's just a slice of life. I mean, you all have been there. I've been there, but that's an example of slice of life. Lifestyle advertising. You see a lot of this on television, especially where it's portraying a lifestyle on the screen that either is your lifestyle or a lifestyle that maybe you want to attain. So the one over on the left is a beer commercial, and the beer commercials are usually always lifestyle advertising. And then over on the right-hand side is McDonald's, where we just have friends hanging out in the parking lot, and it's parking lot hangs. Yeah, I understand that. I understand where they're going there. Obviously, both are going towards a younger demographic. The one on the right is probably 18 to 24-year-olds. And the one on the left is probably maybe 18, maybe a little bit older, 18 to, or 21 to 30-year-olds. But point being, those are message execution styles that they're going after. Personality symbol. That was one. So Mr. Clean is a personality symbol. I don't know if you remember the Budweiser lizards. They've done away with that advertising campaign, and I don't know what exactly it was, but it was very recognizable at the time. And then here is an entertainer. I'm not sure who she is, but anyway, for the brand Dior. So those are personality symbol advertising, just to give you some examples. And so when we're creating that message and that brand content, all of those styles that I mentioned previously, they all take on some type of a tone, positive or negative, usually positive, and they do something to grab your attention, either through words or through illustrations, headlines, or the copy that's in the magazine or in the newspaper. So it's really trying to grab your attention. And all this is it's part of the strategy when you're developing or creating the advertising message. Here's some attention-getting illustrations. I've never seen this truck before, but it looks pretty cool with the Mars bar. Here, over in the middle, tunnel, and that's actually a Ford ad. And bottom left, the guy and the girl, but he's looking at I think a BMW, which is called the Ultimate Attraction. And there's another BMW on the right-hand side. So all these are attention-getting strategies that advertisers will use, and you've seen them yourself. A lot of times we have consumer-generated advertising and consumer-generated content, and that's more and more popular today because of social media. And it's because of social media that this consumer-generated content has become very popular and very effective because, sorry, sort of skip that too much. Because of social media, consumers are now much closer to the companies, and much more. Companies can get consumer response so much more quickly, and so consumers sometimes, for instance, the advertising on the right-hand side for GoPro gets a lot of their advertising media or advertising content from the people who use the GoPro. And you'll see that also on the iPhones, iPhone commercials, where their consumers will submit pictures that they've taken with the camera or video that they've taken with the camera. So that's very, very impactful and very popular these days. So when we're choosing the advertising media that we're going to use, we have to think of, and these are really big terms in advertising, and you need to know what they mean. We're trying to determine the reach, the frequency, the impact, and the engagement of the ad. So when we're choosing the media, how many people is through that media, how many people in our target audience is it going to reach? What's the frequency in which they will see it? So let me give you two examples here. Newspaper advertising traditionally has a very low frequency. And here's the reason why. When you pick up a newspaper, let's say you pick up a Sunday newspaper, and you're just ruffling through the sports page or the sports section, and you might see an advertisement in there for something. Maybe it's Dick's Sporting Goods. You will see that one time. And more than likely, that's the only time you will see it, unless you pick that paper up again, which again is highly unlikely. Television has more frequency because television ads will run for weeks at a time on certain programs. So it has tremendous reach, a television commercial, because more people watch television than they read newspapers. Also, the frequency is incredible because they will run it during targeted television shows that they know that their target audience is probably watching. Think about the reach and frequency of a billboard. Now this is interesting because a billboard may have limited reach. Let's say you place a billboard on Locust Avenue in front of the university. Well, the reach is only going to be the people that drive past Locust Avenue or drive on Locust Avenue. The frequency is going to be how many times they go past that sign. So billboard advertisers will, when they're selling billboard space, they will say that a certain area, let's say Locust Avenue, has so many thousand cars that drive by each day. The thing about it is those same cars will drive by again tomorrow, most of them, because they either live in the area or they work in the area. So they will see that. So even though the reach may be fairly limited, the frequency for the people that do drive by is fairly large because you actually see it every single day you drive by, or nearly every day. So reach, frequency, impact, and engagement are very important when we're trying to decide the media types, the media vehicles, and the timing of our advertisements. So here's the definition of each one. Reach is the measure a percentage of people in the target market who are exposed to the ad. Frequency is how many times the average person would see it. Obviously, impact is, does that message get through, and does it have quality? How impactful is that message or that advertisement? And the engagement, where they listen to it, or do you click through? What were the click-through rates if it was on the internet? Going back to the Matthew McConaughey, I think it's McConaughey, you know who I'm talking about, with the Lincoln Continental, when he was whistling the Andy Griffith tune. When he did that, the engagement for me and impact was very strong because it grabbed my attention. I listened to it, and also because of that, it was again, it was very impactful. And so when we're taking a look at all the different types of mediums that are out there, from television, social media, magazines, radio, you can see some of the advantages and disadvantages that each one has. So I want you to take a look at that, and you might want to pause this just to take a look and make sure that you have a pretty good idea of what the advantages and limitations or disadvantages are for each medium. We already talked about the impact, effectiveness, but when we're selecting a specific media, we also have to look at cost. And with anything else, you get what you pay for. So those that have high impact and high effectiveness generally are very expensive. Television advertising, very expensive. Social media advertising, actually, though, for what you pay for it, is highly effective, and so it's very cost effective. Newspaper advertising tends to be very expensive, although I'm sure that the rates, I haven't placed a newspaper ad for years, but I'm sure the rates have went down since readership is down. But we have to think about cost, because we have to determine what our return is on what we're investing in. Obviously, we don't want to spend money on advertising that's not effective, has very little reach, and very little frequency. So we want to make sure that we make wise investments as we're going through this and determining what that effectiveness is. And there's different ways that we do that. If you take a look at social media, there's a lot of terms like click-through rates and number of hits or number of views. Those are the sorts of things where we measure the effectiveness of that type of medium. So, public relations. We're getting close to the end here, but I want to talk about public relations. We mentioned it, I believe, in an earlier chapter. Most larger firms will have a public relations department, and it's another job opportunity for people in marketing. Public relations is all about building good image, good relations with the public, making sure that the public has a favorable impression or a favorable perception of the company or the brand. And a public relations department can really help improve sales in an indirect way. But you always have to keep in mind two things I always like to say about public relations. One, publicity is free, but publicity can be negative or positive. And it's up to the public relations department to make sure that they maximize favorable or positive publicity and minimize negative publicity. So let me give you an example of each one. Favorable publicity would be maybe an article in the newspaper that tells the public that the company volunteered to the Red Cross to donate blood on Tuesday. Wasn't selling a product, wasn't promoting a brand. It was simply telling the public that ABC company and their employees engaged in an activity so that they could give much needed blood to the Red Cross. It's favorable publicity. Negative publicity would be where maybe one of the products that ABC company manufactures blew up and killed 3 consumers. That would be negative publicity. Negative news, obviously. Here's just some examples of some positive public relations advertisements. Again, they do not promote a product, but they help put a favorable image in the minds of the consumer of the company. Press relations or press agencies are part of the public relations process where we're creating and placing newsworthy information out in the media. Press releases, I don't know if you've ever been involved in creating a press release, but creating a press release is sort of an art, actually. You create a news article that is basically publicity, but you have to be careful that it doesn't sell or promote. It's just telling the general public about something favorable that's going on in your company. And then you put it out to the press, and the press may or may not pick it up. If they pick it up, they'll usually run it in their newspaper, or they'll put it on the news. But it's totally up to, you're not paying for it. It's free. So it's not guaranteed that it will actually go out to the public. It's all up to those news agencies or those press agencies. So obviously it's a lower cost than advertising because public relations is free. And it can improve the sales of products. But if it's negative, it can actually hurt. It has a stronger impact on public awareness than advertising because when consumers see it, it's because it's not advertising or promoting a brand and it's more of a news item. It's taken a little bit more seriously, and so it has stronger impact. And it does have power to engage consumers and make them part of the brand story, even though it's not promoting or selling a brand directly. I think we're nearing the end, but here are some of the public relations tools that are used by companies to help promote and publicize their companies or good, positive stories through the news, speeches, special events like a 5K run that's raising money for a certain charity, written materials, corporate identity materials, public service activities like going out and picking up litter on the highway, buzz marketing, social networking, the internet. There's lots of tools that are out there for PR departments to use. But keep in mind that publicity can be positive or negative. So it's up for the PR department to maximize positive publicity and minimize negative publicity. And that's the end of this chapter. So hope everything is going well. Hope you and your family are safe and healthy. And we'll see you next time, or talk to you next time.